Here we go. So we were on the edge of divorce. I really didn't know what was going on with him. He was acting very strange. He was more and more distance from me than ever before. And I was feeling like, what the hell is going on? And then an event happened and everything changed. So this is what I'm going to talk about. When the truth is revealed, when the truth comes out, the real truth, everything can change in your life. So, I'm Leanna Walden, and I help people in love, life, and sex. I help long-term couples blossom in their intimate and sexual relationship and begin exploring beyond the box, the traditional box. So a lot of my videos talk about that, talk about what you can do to go beyond the box, what you can do as a sexual explorer in a long-term relationship. So check out a bunch of my videos. These are going to give you all sorts of amazing ideas to get you started, get you trying new things, get you talking to your partner, your wife, about exploring. But the most important thing is to first be honest to yourself about who you are and what you feel, what you desire, and then to be honest to your partner. So this is a story about my relationship, my past relationship. It was a 23-year incredible relationship. But there was a point in the 11, 12-year mark where things were crumbling, falling apart, and I didn't know what was going on. I seriously thought that this was it, that we were going to divorce, that it was the end. And I was scared, I was sad, I was alone. He wasn't talking to me, he wasn't communicating, he was so distant, and I was wondering, who the hell is this guy anyways? He doesn't really connect with me right now. And I think this happens a lot in long-term relationships. There is a wall that one hits, and you can feel like this might be the end. It had been a year or so of disconnection, of not communicating, of not very good sex, and not a lot of sex. And I didn't know what was going on. All sorts of things were rolling in my mind. Is it me? Is it something I'm doing? Is it my body? You know, women tend to fall, and men too. You start to think, is there something wrong with my body? Like, am I too fat? Is he not attracted to me anymore? Why doesn't he desire me anymore? I was wondering if he was having an affair with somebody else. But I did trust him, and I didn't think that was possible. But I didn't know. When you're not communicating and you're not really expressing what you really feel and what's really going on, your partner can have a wild imagination about what is possibly happening in the situation. And a lot of it comes down to blaming themselves. And then when it still isn't not being, it's still not getting better, it's still not, when the relationship is still not clearing up or there's still not communication, then you start to blame the relationship. So I was really in that mode, and it was not a very pleasant time. I was quite sad. I was crying a lot because that's what I do. I tend to cry when I'm feeling really like lost and alone, and I couldn't seem to communicate with him. So this no communication, disconnection with him went on for about a year or so, and I didn't know how much longer, I was going to be able to hold on. I then found out that he told me he went to see a counselor and that he was feeling very distraught and he needed to talk to somebody. So at that point I thought, okay, good. He's talking to somebody. Hopefully something's going to get figured out, and then hopefully he'll talk to me after. And he went for a few sessions, and still I didn't hear anything from him. He didn't really want to discuss what the situation was with the counselor. I mean, it's private, and I respect that, but I wanted to know. Of course I wanted to know. Of course I wanted to talk to him. Finally, one day, he did something way out of the ordinary, which blew my mind. So before I go on to this story of what actually happened and how our relationship completely changed at that point, I want you to know that I'm doing some interviews, and I'm looking for you to sign up for an interview so that we can talk about the situation that you're in. I'm doing this for some research around long-term relationships and revealing deeper desires. So if you can sign up for an interview, I would love to have a chat with you. First link in the description below, okay? So here we are. So he had gone away for a little three-day holiday on his own. He said he needed some time alone, and it was true. Like, we both kind of needed some space, and I agreed. Yeah, go for a little vacation. Still, I wasn't thinking that he was going to be cheating with anybody. I just thought, yes, this is a really good idea for him to get some space, and it's really important in a coupledom. It's really important in a coupledom to have some of that space at times, to give each other some breath away from each other, to have different kinds of experiences. So I thought, yeah, this will help us. So he went up for 3 days. It was actually to a conference that he wanted to go to with Abraham Hicks. We were very much into Abraham Hicks at that point, and she was talking at a conference, so he went to that. And so I knew this was going to really be helpful for him as well. He had driven all the way back. It was in San Francisco. He drove all the way back from San Francisco to Vancouver. And I was really super excited to see him. We hadn't talked a lot during the time, but I was excited to see what had transpired from that point. And he came in, he was tired, but he was excited to tell me about the conference and some of the experiences he had just walking around the city and that type of thing. And then he said he needed to talk about something. And let's go for a drive. Let's go out somewhere. Let's go do something. Let's go for a drive. I'm like, a drive? You just came back from like 10-hour drive. Are you sure? Yes, let's go for a drive. I really want to go for a drive. I said, okay. Let's go. So we get into the car and off we go. I don't really know where we're going. We're just chatting a little bit, but he's not really getting into any depth about how he's feeling or what really happened or what's going on for him and why are we going for a drive and where are we going. And we keep driving and we drive out of the city and we start driving towards the mountaintop. Driving up this hill. This is a local ski hill and we're driving up the hill and I'm asking, what is going on? Where are you going? And he says, let's go look at the view at the top of the hill. It'd be really nice. It'd be a really peaceful location for the two of us to talk. And now I'm thinking, my heart starts to pump. Like, what is going on? What does he have to tell me? And then I start thinking, is he having an affair? Is he leaving me? Is he going to leave me? I was really scared at that point. My heart was beating like crazy. I was sweating. And we were very quiet at that point when I started to go in and project all the possibilities that I thought could be happening. We just didn't talk anymore as we're driving up this long, windy hill to get to the top of the mountain. And there's really nobody around because it's kind of in between seasons and it's quiet. So we get to the top of the mountain. He pulls over and he's quiet. He's just sitting there staring out into the view. What's going on? What is going on? I'm asking him, tell me what's happening. What's going on? And I say this a number of times and I am scared. I have no idea what's happening. He says, I do have to talk to you. I have to tell you something. And then I'm like, oh my God, this is it. We're over. It's over. And when you start to think about your relationship ending, divorce, all these things come up. What about the kids and family? And my God, what am I going to do with my life? And holy shit, this is really happening. Is this why the last year has been falling apart? Other things are happening. And just so many things raced through my head at that moment. And he was still sitting there quietly. And he's like, I don't know how to tell you though. I said, just tell me, just let it out. I don't care at this point. I just need to know. I'm going to go crazy if you don't tell me right away. And he takes a big breath. And he says, now, if you've been following my stuff up to this point, you know that I talk a lot about being honest and being open about what's really going on. And this was my moment of really understanding the importance of this. You can spend years and years in that place of denial, unhappiness, holding back, restricting the conversation with your partner because you're so afraid to tell them anything, afraid that they're going to leave you, afraid that they're going to get angry, afraid about what they're going to think about you. But the moment he's quietly staring out the window and he turns his head and he looks at me, he said, okay, I'm going to tell you now. I said, please do. I need to know immediately. And he says, listen, I have been fooling around behind your back. Like, what? And immediately I'm thinking women. He says, but it's not what you think. I've been experimenting with some different men. Now this blew my mind. This really blew my mind, because I had not even thought for a second that this would be a possibility. I had known, and he had told me, that prior to marriage he had experimented with guys. His father was also gay and had come out very late in life. But we had never discussed this before, ever. So I was quite shocked. My mind was blown. I also felt this immense amount of relief come over my body. Like, oh my God, this is what's been going on. Oh my God. Why didn't he talk to me about this? Why didn't he tell me anything before? That's the first thing that I thought. Why didn't he talk to me about this before? We just sat there in silence. And I felt like I could barely breathe, because there was just so much going on, so many questions I had about this and what he was doing, where he was doing it, who he was doing it with, thinking about the past year and those moments of not really knowing where he was and kind of questioning, what? That took you 3 hours? And I had to get out of the car. It was dark. It was the top of a mountain. It was kind of eerie, but I got out of the car, just walked a few steps away, took some deep breaths, and I did feel a huge sense of release and relief that I knew, but I was also very shocked that I had trusted him so much and he had not been able to confide in me. Like, why had he not been able to confide in me? So then we opened up into this whole conversation about me asking a million questions and him responding to everything at that point. I mean, the main thing was that he had been experimenting, cheating. I say exploring because after all of this conversation, I came to realize that he didn't even know for himself what was going on inside of him, what this was all about, and he needed to find out, is this something that's real? Am I bisexual? Am I just like needing that change? Am I going through some weird kind of transition in my life? I need to discover this on my own first. And yes, it was cheating because he wasn't telling me, but later I started to look at it like exploring and experimenting. And yes, it was very hard. The next couple of weeks were really difficult. I was angry at him for not telling me. I was angry at him for not trusting enough in me to be able to tell me. I was angry that our whole life seemed to be now in a place of flux and I didn't know which direction we were going to go. After the conversation in the car, and we were about to drive down, he said, look, I don't know what you want to do at this point. I love you very much, but I will understand whatever decision that you make at this point. And I said, well, I want you to know one thing that's very important. And now I blew his mind. I have also been feeling other things and wanting to divulge other kinds of desires and fantasies, but have held myself back. And I think we have a lot to talk about and some decisions to make moving forward. So that's when I blew his mind. So, after being married for 12 years and getting into these habitual patterns of living and connecting as a couple, and then also feeling other things in each of our own bodies, and our desires changing and our relationship changing. We had kids. We were aging. Every year you age and every year you change, and feeling different things and wanting different things. And some of these things are really, really, really difficult to talk with your partner about, because sex, things that are sexual, things that are deep desires, we've really been told to hold back on, to keep deep inside of our beings and not reveal. But if you can't reveal to the most intimate person in your life, your wife or your husband, or your best friend of some sort, then you're alone, right? You're alone. I mean, you can go to a therapist, and that's another place that you can reveal. So thank God they're therapists, coaches like me, people that are there for you in a non-judgmental manner to help you work through these things. But to talk to your partner is to grow in the relationship. So we spent the next while growing, learning about each other, asking lots of questions, diving in deeper. This was it. Once you've laid it on the table, then it's the opportunity to really go in, really start to question, be curious about what's been going on, to open up deeper within yourself. And the most incredible thing that was a double mind blow was that we started having some of the best sex ever. This is even before we've decided what we're going to do at this point. After about 10 days or so of me going through every possibility of what he might have been doing this time and that time, and how many men he had spent time with, and all sorts of questions, getting out all my fears, all of my concerns, and driving myself absolutely freaking bonkers, I decided it's time to make a decision. Do I stay and deal with this and we come up with some kind of solution, or do I go and deal with it on my own and start a life separate from him? And I decided to stay. I decided that I was now with a man who was exploring his sexuality, and I wanted to explore my sexuality too. So, perfect. We could be together, we could explore together, we could start finding out who we were as sexual beings now that we were older. And could we do this in a marriage? I thought, we're doing it already. It's already happened. So let's keep going. Now, I had no idea what that meant, or what direction we were going to go, or the steps that we were going to take at that point, but I knew that I was not going to be the person that was going to say, no, you cannot explore anymore. You cannot play out any of these fantasies. That's not for me. Well, I could have been. I could have left, and some people may choose to do that. That's fine. But I also wanted to explore. I also wanted to find out, who am I as a sexual being now, as a mother, as a wife, as a woman in her mid-40s? Who am I? And what can we create in our relationship? What can we create in our relationship if we go outside those boundaries, that box that we had been in for 12 years, heterosexual, monogamous, long-term? What happens if we just step outside? Now, we'd already stepped outside, so this is what happens. You get into a conversation, you start to make new choices, and then you take it step by step, day by day, finding out what works for you. What exciting possibilities are there? I talk about a lot of these other things. Now, if you want to hear some deeper, detailed stories about my explorations, my adventures around the sexual with my partner, then you have to join my Patreon account. I tell a revealing story every month, And I get into more detail because it's Patreon. But it's kind of like this format where I am telling you a story and going in deep about my explorations. And I want to inspire you. I want to open up the conversation around sexuality, and I want to break the taboos that exist in creating relationships. You and your partner are the only people that have the right to decide what you want to create in your relationship. The two of you are the power. The two of you are a team. The two of you make the decisions. Okay? No external factor is responsible for that. So if you can be honest and truthful and connected and loving, then the two of you can do, as long as it's a consensual, do whatever you want. Thank you for being here and joining me today. I will talk to you again very soon. Much love making.